Alright, imagine this. You're playing cricket and the whole world is watching. Your team is in shambles, wickets falling one after another, and the weight of an entire cricketing nation is pressing down on your shoulders. The bowlers are breathing fire, the crowd is roaring, and it looks like all hope is lost. What do? If you're Sir Viv Richards, you do what only a few in history could even dream of. You walk in like it's just another day, chew your gum like you have all the time in the world, and then you deliver an inning so outrageous, so devastating, that it leaves everyone speechless. This is the story of the day Viv Richards single-handedly destroyed England, an unbeaten 189 that wasn't just about scoring runs, but about rewriting what was possible in one-day cricket. Stay locked in as we break down every moment of this legendary knock, the brilliance, the destruction, and the legendary it left behind. Only here on Sports Frenzy TV. To understand why this knock was so special, you have to go back to 1984. The West Indies weren't just a good cricket team at the time, they were a force of nature. They had steamrolled teams across the world and were on a mission to prove that their shocking loss to India in the 1983 World Cup final was just a fluke. This squad was packed with legends: Clive Lloyd, Gordon Greenidge, Desmond Haynes, and of course Viv Richards. They had already crushed Australia at home and were now in England, ready to remind the world who was boss. But England wasn't going to roll over easily. They had some serious firepower of their own. Ian Botham, David Gower, Bob Willis. Big names, big reputations. And they had one clear target. They knew that if they could get Viv Richards early, they could break the spine of the West Indies batting lineup. The match started and immediately things went downhill for the West Indies. The English bowlers came in with a plan and it worked to perfection. The ball was swinging, the pitch had life, and the wickets started tumbling like dominoes. Greenidge gone, Haynes gone, Richardson gone. Even Clive Lloyd, the captain, couldn't hold things together. The scoreboard looked like a horror story: 11 for 2, then 22 for 3, then 65 for 5. By the 26th over, West Indies were crumbling at 102 for 7. At this point, England had one foot on West Indies' throat. The bowlers were celebrating, the crowd was electric, and the commentators had already started discussing how quickly the match would be over. But there was one thing they didn't account for. The man still standing at the other end wasn't just any batsman. This was Viv Richards. Richards was different. He didn't just play cricket. He owned the game. He walked in without a helmet, chewing gum, his bat resting lazily on his shoulder, as if one of this chaos around him even mattered. But inside, he knew exactly what was happening. He wasn't just fighting for his team. He was fighting for West Indian pride. At first, Richards played smart. He knew he couldn't just start throwing his bat around recklessly, so he built his innings patiently. He found gaps, took singles, and watched carefully as wickets kept falling. But when the 9th wicket fell at 166, it seemed like the end. Michael Holding, a fast bowler who was never known for his batting, was now his last partner. England thought they had wrapped things up. The fielders were already picturing an easy chase, but Richards wasn't done yet. This is where everything changed. With nothing left to lose, Viv Richards decided it was time to flip the switch. What followed was pure destruction. Richards took England apart bit by bit. At first, he focused on placement, rotating the strike, keeping Holding safe at the non-striker's end. But then he unleashed. Every loose ball disappeared. Every full-length delivery was driven with authority. Every short ball was pulled into the stands. It didn't matter what England bowled. He had an answer for everything. He reached his century in 112 balls, which was already lightning fast for that era. But that was just the beginning. His next 50 runs came in just 35 balls. The English bowlers were running out of ideas. They went short, he hooked. They went full, he drilled it straight down the ground. They tried to cramp him, he flicked them to the leg side with ease. On the other end, Michael Holding was doing exactly what he needed. He blocked, defended, and let Richards do all the scoring. He faced 27 balls and scored only 12 runs, but his contribution was just as important. He was the anchor that let Richards play freely. Together, they stitched together a 106-run partnership for the final wicket, a record that still stands today. By the time the carnage ended, West Indies had gone from 102 for 7 to 272 for 9. Richards had done something unimaginable. He had turned a hopeless collapse into an innings that would be talked about for decades. When the innings closed, Richards walked off the field unbeaten on 189. It was the highest individual ODI score at the time. But it wasn't just the number that made it special. It was how he got those runs. He had smashed 21 fours and 5 sixes, scoring at a strike rate of 167.17, which was unheard of back then. The sheer dominance was staggering. He alone had scored 69.4% of the team's total runs, the highest percentage ever recorded in a completed ODI innings. England was shattered. The same bowlers who had West Indies on the ropes just hours earlier now looked completely clueless. And when England came out to bat, it was clear they had already lost the match in their minds. They barely put up a fight. Their battling crumbled under pressure, and they were bowled out for just 168. They couldn't even match Richards' individual score. West Indies had won, but more than that, Richards had made a statement. This wasn't just about winning a game. This was about dominance, about rewriting the rules for one-day cricket. Before this, ODIs were seen as a slower format, where batsmen built their innings carefully, where aggression was controlled. But Viv Richards had just shown the world what modern cricket could look like. His knock changed the game, the kind of fearless, attacking cricket he played that day. That's how the sport is played now. The power hitting, the ability to chase down big scores, the sheer confidence to take on bowlers regardless of the situation, all of that started with innings like this one. And let's not forget what made this even more incredible. Back then, bats weren't the power-packed, thick-edged monsters we see today. Boundaries were longer. There were no fancy fielding restrictions, no power plays, no second chances with DRS. And yet, Richards played an innings that still stands the test of time, an innings that modern greats still look at with awe. Decades later, there have been bigger individual scores in ODIs. There have been double centuries, even scores crossing 250. But very few innings have carried the sheer dominance, the sheer audacity of what Viv Richards did that day. This wasn't just about numbers. This was about one man taking on an entire team and winning. This was about making a nation proud. This was about showing the world that when Viv Richards was at the crease, no target was safe, no bowler was unbreakable, and no team was unbeatable. So, was this the greatest ODI innings of all time? The debate will always continue. But what's certain is that in the history of one-day cricket, there has never been another knock quite like this one. And that is why Sir Viv Richards remains one of the greatest to ever play the game. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more legendary cricket stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Catch you next time!